These things are reasons. That became cosmology and shamanism and eventually religion and priesthoods. But it started 102,000 years ago, us coming up with reasons for things. In the national section, consciousness moved into laws and punishment. As a stage of consciousness. You've all heard the story of Adam and Eve. Do you guys know about when that story took place, according to the Hebrew Bible? Just about 60 years after this started. The whole idea of right and wrong, good and bad, was achieved during this period. Before that, there were only reasons things happened. There were superstitions, but there were suggestions, but there wasn't a line of dividing good and evil, right and wrong. It was during this period that laws came to be. Here, in the planetary cycle, consciousness was aimed primarily at one thing: power. Power and more power. Power to manipulate the environment. During this last section of the national cycle, we started discovering the laws of nature and harnessing those to supply us with more energy, for more power. Back here in 1755, a man with 25 horses was a powerful individual. But each one of you rode over here in a carriage with some 180 horses pulling it. We each have a lot more power. Knowledge is power. You can go on the internet like I did today and look up absolutely anything you're curious about. You can know miracles. Imagine a person, an educated person in 1755. Medicine was a primitive art. There was no science attached to it. There was no higher learning. Not in any context as we have now. We have a lot more power at our disposal, thanks to this last 257 years. But power is not the end of the game, not evidently. There's a new kid on the block. A new consciousness that entered on January 5th, 1999. And that consciousness is of ethics. Now, a lot of people have ethics and morals kind of put together in the same soup. They're not really. Morals are a cultural thing. Morals are legislated by laws. Ethics is something which is deeply personal. Ethics is basically knowing the right thing to do and doing it. There's lots of things that are somehow moral, but not exactly ethical. Ethics is a refined consciousness. We'll be talking more about this because what we're going through right now is an evolution from some of these consciousnesses into higher consciousnesses. It's not always been an easy thing in the past, and we shouldn't really expect it to be so easy now, although our understanding will help tremendously. The universal consciousness the universal consciousness that we will arrive at completely by October 28, 2011, is the consciousness of consciously co-creating. Consciously co-creating your very experience. I want that to sink in just a little bit so you got kind of an idea of how much we have to evolve, or don't have to, how much we're given the opportunity to evolve in a very, very short period of time. Right now, consciousness on Earth is sort of semi-conscious, wouldn't you say? I mean, for sure, it's a co-creation. Our reality is a co-creation. Everybody, with all their points of view, are adding to this, whether they know it or not. And most don't. Most folks don't understand that they're not a victim. That they're actually participating in this co-creation. There's some of us that have a pretty bright glimmer of it every once in a while, right? That we're consciously co-creating. Haven't you noticed more and more of what you intend coming about one way or another? I know that I have, and I know that many people that I talk to, friends, that have come up to me and said, "My God, things are manifesting so fast. I was just thinking about such and such, and now it's in my life." Conscious co-creation is being spoon-fed to us. And people are waking up in droves everywhere to this fact. But we're going to be talking about the actual stages we'll go through, this 1 through 13. We're going to go through this and show you where and when the stages are. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening right now in our socio-political arenas in the world. Primarily, there are certain kinds of consciousness which are sort of like a dead weight, dragging things down, need to be overcome to move on to higher and higher states of consciousness. One of those is this cultural consciousness down here. We as humanity pretty much have gotten over tribal consciousness and having to belong to a small group of people. Now we have much larger vistas of consciousness. The cultural one is always a set of beliefs. I mean, they're the reasons people are living. Like there's certain folks who are living to be Israel or Israelis. And there are other people who are living to be Palestinians or Hindus or Muslims. Which is okay unless you think that this is the most important thing. If you think that Muslimism is the most important thing and all other religions, faiths, or sciences are bunk, then this cultural belief is in your way. If you believe that you have to be Protestant or you have to be Catholic in order to be right, that's limiting and in the way. And those viewpoints, frankly, are now going extinct. That way of looking at things just won't fly anymore. Now, as the grip on people's consciousness starts to slip away from those empowered in the cultures, they will get a little bit more frantic. I mean, just think about anything suffocating to death, and you'll see what these folks are going through. There is no way out if you think you're the only one. That includes me. The national laws and punishment, fight and die for country, that whole idea is dying, isn't it? Do you watch the news? Anybody admit to watching the news? Well, I understand not watching the news, but I don't know how you could possibly help but hear all the hue and cry over whether it's right to go murder innocents in Iraq for our principle and or not. There's a huge debate going on right now on whether it's right to defend the nation against any and all possible threat, as though the nation was the most important thing in anyone's life or on the planet. America is America. It's a plot of ground. It's no more important than Africa or Asia. It's all part of a planetary body. We have no more privilege, or should have no more privilege, than anyone else on earth. And the whole idea that we have to go defend our privilege is dying, isn't it? Thank you. This can be a two-way deal, by the way. I'm not up here just to lecture. I don't like that. The whole idea of nationalism is going extinct. Makes sense. We have a planetary economy. We have planetary communications. Borders are getting less and less important. So these people that are locked into, or that consciousness which is locked into the narrow view of love it or leave it, whether it's Alberta or America, those people are going to be moved one way or another. It happened to the dinosaurs down here. It actually happened to the Neanderthals right there. And here, this planetary cycle, we're all riding the crest, riding in the first car of the power train. All over the world. We got Bush, he's up there stoking the coal into the engine. And all of us, public, not part of the government, but all this public are riding in the first car. It's a nice car. Leather seats, frilly cushions, curtains, drinks served by the minute.